Welcome to the thrilling world of Security Squawk, where we explore cybersecurity. Guiding you through online threats, we'll aid you in understanding safety protocols and trends. Meet our gurus, Bryan from Exact IT, Reginald from Arc Solvers, and Randy from Tech Rescue. Together, we'll delve into current events and hot cybersecurity topics, helping you comprehend their impact. Stay informed, stay secure. Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. Buckle up, let's dive in.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Security Squawk podcast, the business of cybersecurity. It's where we talk about how businesses and you can deal with these cyber criminals and not become a victim of them, right? So I'm Bryan here with Randy and Andre. What's up, guys? How are you today?
I hear you loud and clear.
I know, right? Sorry about the audio issues, everyone, last week. Apparently we had a little echo going on that we didn't hear during the show, but apparently came out in the final audio. Hopefully that's all cleared up today, but let us know in the comments if you're hearing echoes or weird stuff going on, but we think we got it cleared up. So, all right, guys, today's show, we got some interesting stuff going on. Remember, share the show if you're watching us wherever you can. Randy opens us up with a fake Wi-Fi network run mid-flight. Very interesting what's going on there. I got some things I want to point out too that are related to that story, Randy, but not exactly that story. And when I see a lot of warnings around something, I'm kind of like, something's going on here. So I got a story about a ransomware gang that hijacked a hospital's Facebook page. So I'm gonna kind of dive into the extortion side of a ransomware attack and a hacking, and what these guys are willing to do to get paid. And Andre, you're going to close this out with a new rule letting private firms hack criminals back in the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So very interesting conversations that are going to happen on today's show. Randy, and remember, share the show. Right. Randy's going to kick us off. He's got a story that will make you, and everyone should really, it's wild to me how much people connect to these networks. And like even the ones that say they're secure at like hotels and stuff, I got news for you folks. It's really easy for a hacker to sit on those networks and hack you. So without going into great, boring technical detail about it, just trust me, cruises, hotels, airplanes, even though they say they're secure, they have a little lock on the Wi-Fi. So you're like, oh yeah, and I got to put my password and agree to get on the internet. There's that little, what we call that gateway page or that garden wall page, right? Somebody, as Randy's going to point out, on a flight from Vegas to Atlanta this week, someone set up a fake network on that airplane posing as the plane's Wi-Fi. What happened? What the hell happened here, my friend? Tell us.
Yeah. So it's pretty funny, the stuff that you said already. Because whenever I'm on a plane, I am always looking around, okay, that guy's probably not a hacker. That guy, obviously not. Oh, that guy might be, or whatever. And it's a very real issue. And I'm going to get towards the end of my thing, I'm going to get y'all's opinion, and I kind of know where they're going to fall, but I want to get y'all's opinion on this. But so basically what happened was this has come out in different ways. So basically a plane coming from Vegas had just left a couple of white hat, in fact, literally one of them's called Black Hat, but just basically came from a couple of cybersecurity conventions where you got a lot of
they were juiced up. They were like, oh,
they were.
I know how to use this pineapple now.
Yes. You probably bought one. Well, and it gets more interesting than that. But anyway, so what happened is the flight starts and people are getting on Wi-Fi and stuff and all that. And then all of a sudden, everybody got kicked off Wi-Fi at one time, which, by the way, huge red flag. Your spidey senses ought to go off. If you're watching our show and you're like a lay person, like a CEO or something like that, you're not a tech geek, when everybody gets kicked off, shut your laptop and just stay off of it. But anyway, everybody gets kicked off, and then all of a sudden you see the Delta Wi-Fi, but now you've got Delta Wi-Fi fast that's also sitting right there. And so people,
5G.
that's right. And so people start logging on or trying to log on to this Delta Wi-Fi fast. And
so
then
not using FBI Network 3 no more.
Exactly. Yes. Or FBI.gov or anything like that.
FBI Van 2.
They start doing that. The crew catches wind of it. And then we see, this is borderline fascinating. We see the texts. So apparently the pilots, they hear from the crew that everybody's been kicked off. And then now there's 2 Wi-Fis instead of 1. And one looks eerily close to the first one. And so then we see these texts coming from the pilots that basically say, hackers have jammed our Wi-Fi, and, we're letting you know, let the corporate security know, and this or that. And they're basically, phoning back home. They ended up turning off the whole thing. So they turned off their network for about 30 minutes. This is going to unfold as we go, because I've heard reports that the FBI has been involved. I've heard reports that authorities were waiting when the plane got off, because to do something like this literally does violate several basically federal laws about air travel, could get somebody in really hot water here, potential felonies. And it probably most likely was some guy or gal was over there at one of those conferences and bought a pineapple at a booth and thought they would give it a shot and see what happened. But it does raise a lot of issues, like you mentioned in the
at least they bought the right tool.
What's that?
Maybe at least they bought the right tool, it sounds like.
Yeah, maybe, because it does sound like a pineapple.
Not a flipper.
Yeah, or a flipper, which is like, those are little hacking tools you can buy for like $100 that do all kinds of crazy stuff. We're not saying you should buy one, but you can also use them to pen test your own stuff and see if it can stand against a hacker. But like you mentioned at the beginning, like these Wi-Fis, you talked about cruise ship Wi-Fis. There's airline Wi-Fis. You're on a cruise ship, you have the potential that you could use your own like satellite internet or something like that. You've got coffee shop Wi-Fis. I just want to talk about a few things that CEOs or road warriors could do that are on the road and they're at different places working. We had one CEO from our company. I've mentioned this on the thing a few times, and I'll be really quick. Basically had his backpack and his laptop and went on a trip to Italy at the last day, opened up his laptop to check his Wi-Fi right before he got on the plane. And they were able to steal a session token, the bad guys were, and get into his account. So he got disconnected while he was flying over the Atlantic, coming back by the tech rescue team. But a few things that you can do. So first off, if you have a chance, use a hotspot. Okay. I know you can't do that in a plane unless maybe you had Starlink and you could get it to connect. I don't know. That's a whole nother thing, but use a hotspot. You want to take your phone and turn it off from hitting automatically connecting to public Wi-Fi's. That is an atrocious setting. When the iPhone first came out and college students were the ones that were into it then when it first came out, it was shutting down entire college networks because the iPhones were overwhelming the networks by automatically jumping on to the public. So turn that off. You want to have, if you can, get an always on VPN. Your IT company might call it a SASE, SASE. They might call it a modern VPN, but it's still a VPN and it's basically on all the time. So in the chance that you have to get onto one of these networks, at least have that on. And then never, ever, 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 when you go get on one of these, if you had to, if it asks you to sign into Microsoft, to prove who you are, run away, because that's just them trying to get your credentials. Now, I wanted to hear y'all's thoughts. So what do we do? We're going to be traveling 2 hours. We're going to be on a plane. Should we try to be productive while we're on the plane, while we're traveling? Should we like pre-download all of our emails and answer them and reconnect when we get there? What are y'all's opinions on connecting on an airplane specifically?
I think this was an isolated incident. Someone's just, you got, like you said, people went to this conference. They got a new tool. I originally, even before reading this article, I thought, how like I have an iPhone, and on the iPhones, and I'm sure Androids too, you can actually create like your own Wi-Fi name and password. So I was just thinking someone just decided just to be funny. Now this could be, you got, let's just say 200-300 people in a plane. If they really, really want to investigate this, I'm sure by, process elimination, they could figure out who went to this conference, and then figure out, who were the vendors there that were selling it. And, unless they paid cash or something, maybe, the person paid on their credit card. And so I'm sure they can eventually figure it out. But I think it was just more of a funny prank that didn't, that this adult, unfortunately, right, an adult, didn't think thoroughly on, and saying, you know what, maybe I shouldn't do this. Who knows? Maybe at the end they were checking all the luggage, just to see who's got whatever in their carry-on. So I don't think it's going to be something like in the future that we have to worry about, because I think it was more of just an isolated thing.
I would say, Andre, what kind of points away from so probably a prank, but also using like a real hacking tool, was the fact that they got on the original Wi-Fi and sent an unauthenticated, it's called a de-authentication, an unencrypted de-authentication frame, which basically tells all the devices to leave. Newer versions of Wi-Fi do handle that specific issue and keep some rando just from getting on and bumping everybody off, although there's probably other ways to do it. Newer versions of Wi-Fi do try to, atone for that. But anyway, so probably prank-ish, but they did kick everybody off.
Yeah.
I know Brian's been chomping at the bit on this one.
No, not really. Good points. You asked a question, which was, what do you do, right?
Did we even try to do it?
So I personally do not allow our company devices to connect to Wi-Fi. So our Wi-Fi is zero trust, right? You can only connect to pre-approved Wi-Fis that we load into your computer. So the bigger concern for me with this stuff is, and we've seen this is why I want to point it out, right? Let's say you go to the airport today, right? You connect to their open Wi-Fi where you're sitting in the terminal. There's no hackers there today, right? The problem with the way Windows, and I believe Mac works too, is when you connect successfully to these networks, they typically save it as a stored profile in your system. And the setting is usually set to where you're to reconnect to that network if that device ever comes within range of its signal ever again. So today there might not be a hacker on that network, but in 6 months, there might be a hacker on that network, and you might not even be connecting to the network, like intentionally. You may just have your phone, your device, walking through the terminal, and it connects to that network, but it's not the airport network. It is a hacker network that a hacker set up. And that is the thing, that is the bigger risk that we see with these open network connections, is that they become stored profiles. I guarantee you most people have in the Northeast, because Xfinity is so large, and they basically have these routers set up all over the place that allow Xfinity customers to connect to Wi-Fi using, like, Randy, you could have one of these Xfinity routers in your house, and they turn on this feature that allows Xfinity customers to connect to the internet through the router sitting in your house.
Yep.
Right. So a lot of people probably have Xfinity Wi-Fi as a stored Wi-Fi profile in their devices, which means as they run around town, as these Xfinity Wi-Fi networks are exposed to the public, your phone could be connecting or potentially be connecting to those devices. So if you're in a major city like New York, Philadelphia, Boston, you have Xfinity, somebody could just set up an Xfinity Wi-Fi on one of these Pineapple or Flipper devices, and hundreds of devices will probably connect through it because they have that particular Wi-Fi network stored in their phone. So, like, not only should you never connect to these networks, make sure you know the difference between, like, the settings when you connect, like, I want to join this network again automatically. Uncheck that. Like, don't check connect automatically in Windows 11 when it pops up. Uncheck that box. So the next time you know that device comes in contact with that network, it just doesn't automatically connect to it. You have to say, yeah, I want to connect to this network. So most companies aren't going to do zero trust like we do. And then I'll give it a little bit further of what I do. I do get on Wi-Fi on an airplane. It's either going to be on an iPad that's not a company-owned device, that does not have company stuff on it, or it's going to be what I call my burner laptop, which is my home laptop, which has nothing on it but Chrome. And I use that to connect to, you know, my systems, but I also use a VPN as well, Randy.
Yeah, that's great. And do you ever use, like, your iPad? So you never ever would have a company thing on there. So I was going to say, do you ever use your iPad as a hotspot so then you could connect your company device?
I mean,
Right.
I know you can do that, but I don't do that.
That's good.
Just because the iPad's not an approved company device.
Right.
It's not locked down. We don't manage it. We don't even let iPads in our environment.
Okay.
So just because, and not because we hate them or we think they're not secure, we just don't need another thing to know how to secure. Like, we limit what we have, you know, available to us on the network, so we don't have to know how to secure a million things, right? We've standardized on certain pieces of equipment. We know how to secure them really well, and that's how you get hackers to not bother you.
It's good.
So,
Awesome.
right, cool. Anything else, Andre? Mr. Andre?
No, we're good.
All right. So I'm going to come at you guys with this hospital story that I was actually floored about as I was looking for topics for the show. And again, there were no shortage of topics. I just happened to pick this one because I just said, hey, these guys are getting pretty ballsy out here. But unfortunately, a nonprofit hospital system called ANMED, they, if you don't know what they do, they provide care across upstate South Carolina and into Georgia. And they got hit with malware that took down its systems and closed most of its locations. And then 2 weeks into the cleanup, the attackers did something that I've never seen before. And that's why I wanted to bring it to the show, because we want to make sure that we're keeping everybody on the cutting edge of what they need to be aware of when it comes to these cyber attacks, because these guys are constantly pivoting and changing what they do, how they trick your employees, how they try to embarrass you so that you feel that pressure to pay them what they want, which is that ransom demand. So one of our more recent favorite groups, guys, the Gentlemen, Andre, I think you brought them to the show for the first time maybe about 6 months ago. This gang who call themselves the Gentlemen, and they're not gentlemen whatsoever, from the attacks that we've analyzed that they did. ANMED's, not only did they take over the system, they got their Facebook page. So then they decided to post a ransom demand on their Facebook page. So they posted it publicly. So here you go. Now everybody that is following this hospital in this small conglomerate of small towns, I guess I'll call it, right? I'm sure a lot of people follow this page. or quickly became aware of it through various groups and people sharing it. So they decided to use that same page that patients use to check office hours, closures, get updates on what the hospital's doing. And now these guys, these criminals, are using your social accounts as a weapon to get paid, right? And we've seen this in other ways play out with these groups, calling customers, calling employees, calling whoever they can to put pressure on you, to embarrass you, to make you feel some kind of shame. So psychologically, you give up and you want to pay these guys. So what they did is they went on Facebook, guys. They claimed 6 terabytes of the most sensitive records imaginable were going to be released on Facebook. HIV status of patients, mental health of patients, names of sexual assault victims, and they're just going to throw it out there. So AMED says it still hasn't confirmed any data was taken. Unfortunately, AMED, if you're not being advised properly, when these guys start doing this stuff, they have your data. They're not joking at this point. And no cyber defender or incident responder worth anything at all is going to tell you that, yeah, there's a chance they didn't take your data here. There's no chance. So AMED had close to nearly 80 facilities, guys. And a lot of those, they had to start canceling appointments. But 2 weeks later, 10 of these facilities are still dark. So 70 are back up. 10 are still dark for some reason. For downtime like that for any business is going to be a cost above and beyond what we're talking about here, which is this ransom demand. So I'm going to wrap up here, guys, and get your thoughts. But my last kind of thought around this topic today is the gentleman group, right? It's a ransomware as a service business with roots from killing. They're kind of an offshoot from that gang. Been very successful here in the last 6-7 months, and they hand affiliates a very heavy 90% take of the ransom payment. So if you can break into a network, if you have the skills to do that, you might want to work with the gentleman because they like to pay 90% to you and they only keep 10%. It also means that they ask for a significant amount of money, because if you don't think that group is walking away with millions on that 10%, you're sorely mistaken, right? So they're not, deploying their ransomware software, negotiating ransoms and doing all the stuff that these ransomware groups do for 10 grand, right? So I just want you to be mindful of the numbers that these groups usually deal with, because it's probably going to be, close to, 10 million or more. Wouldn't surprise me on a number that this group is asking for, especially with the tactic that they're using and what they're threatening to release. So, again, you're not up against that lone hacker in the hoodie anymore. You're up against criminal organizations, very well organized, with affiliates. And once they get in, this group, gentlemen, they know what they're doing. They know how to get paid. Thoughts, guys?
Well, in my next article, we're going to be talking about how we're going to be going after them. But for now, this is an amazing article, Bryan, because, you were kind of very light on what the confidential information. So we're just to add to it, information about police evidence, abortions, rape victims. This is like the things that you just don't want out. And, just going back to now this whole Facebook thing, it's like one of the things that I know for my clients is, you talk about incident response, and it's typically what happens if, a hacker comes in and they get into your Microsoft 365, what's your plan there? Or, whatever your the software that you're using as far as your line of business and things like that. But very rarely is anybody talking about the marketing team and communications team that's managing the Facebooks and managing, all of the social media. And the fact that they did get 6 gigs of information. Was it gigs or terabytes? I'm sorry.
Gigs.
It was, yeah,
terabytes.
Terabytes. Yeah, thank you.
Terabytes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. 6 terabytes tells me that there was probably an Excel spreadsheet that someone had that had all of the passwords of the Facebooks and things like that, and they were probably able to find that. And I'm surprised that there was no type of two-form factor or anything that could have blocked them, because this could have went really even worse. I mean, I know they did that announcement, but just imagine now in the future they get into these social medias and they say, hey, emergency room closed, go to another hospital, or reschedule, or whatever the case is. I mean, that can cause havoc in a small town and things like that. That just what's that viral? It just goes viral, right? So like all of a sudden, like, oh, don't go to this hospital, and then now emergency services are confused and other hospitals are getting overwhelmed because of this, fake reporting and things like that. So definitely, and Med Health is going to be paying a lot of money to make. I'm hoping that they pay to protect these people's information, because it's no fault of their own that however they got in is their fault.
Yeah, and the people probably won't see much unless there's some kind of a class action suit. They probably won't see much, like repayment, reimbursement, or being compensated for this, which is the sad reality. I was reading about another breach today that involved over 1 million records, and the company and the data was there. They were threatening to release it, and the company just said, we're not paying the ransom. And so all the data was released. Now all those 1.2 million people, just like the people in this particular instance, have to deal with that. So I guess we can officially say the negotiations between our government and the hackers to take infrastructure off the table, that's out the window, 100%. Right, Andre? Anyway, so
does that still exist?
No, I'm just kidding. I don't
Not
think
the
it ever
last
did.
guy. I don't think anything the last guy did was still exists, right?
Anybody that believed, don't ever believe anything like that. If the government says we got a deal worked out, there's nothing there. But
I'm from the government. I'm here to help.
That's right. We have been seeing this for quite a while. We talked about it on our show multiple times, that they will do whatever they can. We call them psyops, whatever they can to take advantage of the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that you already have when you're in a breach situation. Anything they can do to twist your pinky, twist your arm to get you to pay up. And this is just another one of them. Go into your Facebook and get into there. That's why all these things have to be looked at. When you're locking your company down, you're securing your company down, your website matters, your Facebook matters, your personal Gmail that verifies when you log into a work thing. All those things have to be locked down, because they will go and they will find them, and then they will use them against you.
Yep. Yeah, it's unfortunate because these victims just become victims again, right? When this stuff gets released, right? And like, rape victims don't want to have to live through what they already lived through again because some cyber criminal group released this. And it's a real shame that all this boils down to a lot of times is this psyops you talk about, Randy. The target are the people who pull the strings on this decision, which is usually the CEO of the hospital and or the board, right? So they're going to do everything they can to embarrass those people. And it may be at the cost of victims, of rape and people who have mental health issues, all that information being released, right? And, I just wish hospitals would understand that this is what comes to the surface and this is what they have to deal with when cyber criminals take advantage of that, because they don't do a good enough job of keeping them out of the system, right? And people will sit there and say, oh, well, Bryan, you don't know what they were doing. Yes, when you can take down 80 locations, you're not doing enough. It just, we talk about this all the time on the show. Like there's certain things in these topics and in these stories that we read as people who deal with this stuff every day. And we can go, oh, well, that right there tells you that they didn't have segmentation really built out, thought out, baked out. And that allowed all 80 locations to go down, right? Even 10 locations. Like, don't be happy that, oh, well, we got 10 that are down and 70 are back up. Okay. The 10 shouldn't have gone down.
Mm-hmm.
Like one. And like not even one. One's bad. Like you like within each facility, you should have multiple segments where, you know, the people in the kitchen can't click on something and take down the people who are collecting the checks and, you know, making sure that the residents are paying their money.
Yep.
Or the people in the hospital that are getting treatment are paying their money. But these systems all seem to be connected, right? And these people walk in with God knows what, their own laptops, their own cell phones. They connect them up to the Wi-Fi networks. I see all this kind of behavior at hospitals and medical facilities all the time. So, all right. Any last thoughts before we move into Mr. Andre's article, which is very interesting, by the way, Mr. Andre.
Yeah.
I was very, when you brought this to the table last week, I was like, wow, look at this one. So in an interesting pivot, and I don't want to brag, but I did kind of say that this administration was handling things a little bit differently. And really just kind of telling private businesses, like, you deal with this. Like, we're not coming to the rescue anymore. So this week, the White House decided to put out a memo, Andre. First one in U.S. history. We have to point that out. That they would let vetted private companies go on the offensive against foreign cyber criminals. So hacking, if you don't know, is federally against the law. Any kind of intrusion into someone's device without authorization is a federal crime, a felony. So most people that are in this world that we're in, we understand that, and we know the minute we cross that line, what we're doing and where that line is. And now the government's saying we may blur that line a little bit for certain companies who get blessed and allow them to do what to who and how and when and why. Andre, tell us.
Hey, man, Blackwater is back, right?
Wow.
So, you know, when I saw this, I was amazed because, you know, historically, cybersecurity companies, our job is to defend our clients. And if, you know, God forbid there was an attack, we have to collect that, you know, information and then give that to the authorities and hope that they help us or, you know, investigate it and so forth like that. But now that, you know, with a process, you're giving the okay for companies to hack other, you know, the bad guys. I think it's a great idea, but I think it's going to backfire. So we all know, like, for example, in war, you sometimes hear that, you know, there was a bombing of a school and the U.S. government bombed a school in some country. And everybody's like, why would they do that? And then the government then says, well, yeah, it was a school, but the bad guys actually had all of their artillery there and it was a front. But we do agree some school children were there, but, you know, that was just what we had to do. So imagine now you have a private company who gets the government's blessing and sign-offs to go ahead and do this attack. And it turns out that, you know, it turned out to be a hospital. That because maybe the hospital got hacked, they don't know that they got hacked, and now it's all the IP addresses and everything kind of makes it seem like, okay, this is where the attacker is, and then now, you know, we're in a wild west where we're now just going after, you know, certain targets, but then not doing maybe the full due diligence our government would do. So that's one of my you know, things with this. But overall, I think it's good because we finally can be in the offensive, and I think the government does need help. but I also do think that it could backfire on us, and especially if these companies get if these companies are public, in the sense that we, the public, knows who these companies are. Imagine now the government going and attacking that company, or maybe they know Bryan works because of his LinkedIn. He works for that company, and now they're going after him for like, hey, give us some secrets, or they just say, you know what, we know Bryan's company attacked us. Now we're going to go after you. So like, I just think like it's going to be like bullets flying everywhere, and we're not going to really know what's going on and why, because it's just a wild, wild west.
I don't know if I agree that this is setting up a wild, wild west situation, because you have to be an approved company to do this.
True.
So if you're not, you're breaking the law. But the rules haven't been set yet, right? So this has been floated. There's $1 million in escrow. And as long as you get sign-offs from the Justice Department and Homeland Security, and you're not targeting American companies, supposedly the guardrails are off at that point. Like, you could basically do whatever you want. Or no, I can't say that. The guardrails, the rule book will come out in 2 months. But the framework that they put out is like, hey, if you get to be an approved company, you get these sign-offs, and you're not targeting an American company. What does the $1 million in escrow do? What is that for? Do we know?
I mean, you would lose your escrow money if you didn't follow the rules, but I'm sure their contract is going to be worth way more than that.
I don't necessarily think it's a contract thing, dude. I think it's more or less like, we're going to let you do this. You're going to put $1 million over here. As long as you do what you say you're going to do, then you'll get your $1 million back. But if you don't, we keep your $1 million. So they're just putting some financial risk into them playing by the rules.
Yeah.
Right. And then if you successfully hack them, I guess, I don't know, can you ransom them? Can you and that's how you get paid? I don't know.
As long as you pay your taxes, man. Sure.
It's such a peculiar move. It's so like what are you gonna do what are you gonna do once you hack them? Who are you gonna let them hack? It's a weird announcement. It's a weird move. It's like, what are you doing? Saying, are you saying that the government doesn't have the best of the best when it comes to hacking, so we need some private guys to like come in and help us out? Is that what this is? Like, you're shaking your head, Randy. So
all those questions. The first thing I thought when I heard it was what you just said. Yeah. Wow, have we lost so much capability that we used to
the Edward Snowden effect, eh?
We used to think or know that the best of the best were government spooks, hacking for the good side. And then now, why do we need to do this? How are we going to identify targets? What's the end game? My second thought that came out of my head right after that one was, this just another cat and mouse. We're going to open up a cat and mouse, a whole sector of cat and mouse we never dreamed of is about to get opened up, because we're doing it like this. And then the third thing that popped in my head right after that, I'm talking boom, boom, boom. Third thought was literally, hey, Bryan, how long do you think before one of these private firms has a rogue person on the inside of the private firm that does something wrong and gets caught? And I think that'll happen probably within the first year. Because given that much power is going to attract the wrong, potentially could attract
the wrong. If you go slow and you do this the right way,
maybe
that shouldn't play out for many years, to be honest with you, right? Because the team should be small, the people involved should be small, and then as it kind of goes and people trust it more, and hey, this is working pretty well, let's hire 30 more, and then they hire 30 more, and then that's when somebody in that 30 becomes one of those people who decides he's going to grease his palms while he's working at this company. Absolutely could play out that way. Probably has to do with the personnel that they're getting. Like, people just aren't going into the military like they used to, and they're not able to, have that military wing of hackers that they were able to recruit for, the CIA and all that stuff like that. I'm wondering if that pipeline has dried up.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, shit, Russia's been doing it like this for years. Maybe we're just taking a page out of their playbook.
I
think we have a group of protected hackers that hack away and share the wealth. I don't know. I have no idea. But
I think it's both. I think, competing on a government $80,000, $100,000 a year salary versus that person can go into a private company and making, $150,000 or whatever. That's probably shifting them that way. And, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe I should have checked before, but was this like a Trump tweet where he's like, our people can't do this. I'm going to go ahead and just privatize it. And let's just, and then all of a sudden it becomes policy.
I don't know.
I know, horrible Trump voice, by the way. I know.
Should have freaked that. He should have figured that out when you brought it into the show, because this is interesting. There's more here than there's more here than what we have for today's show, and it'll be interesting when the rules come out. We got to re-hit this because the rules are going to tell you a lot. Like, what can you do? Because let me tell you something. The people who are writing the rules are the companies that are already handpicked to be the companies that hack, right? So whoever the companies are that are going to do the hacking, probably Palantir, probably AI companies, I don't know, but they're the ones who are writing the rule book right now, guaranteed.
Yeah.
Because who in the government has the expertise to write a rule book like this? Maybe Trump. Maybe Trump could do it.
Well, so it wasn't a Trump tweet, but Trump did sign the presidential memorandum this month, a few days ago.
I can just tell you that anybody involved in CMMC should not be involved in this. That's all I'm saying. Because those people don't know what they're doing. I'm just saying.
And I could also see it later on where, hey, if you do get hit back, you now have the right to, if you get hit, you have the right to hit back. Like this is just the beginning of how this could spiral, man.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Like, some big company like U.S. Healthcare gets hit, and then our government turns to one of these companies and says, all right, go after this criminal group. Go get them.
For the sake of, like, that last article you did, right? 6 terabytes of data. Go get that data back. Make sure it's deleted from their servers.
Right. Like, destroy their infrastructure.
Yeah.
Right. It becomes no different than a military mission, right? Like, here's the objective. Like, we're not gonna let them extort. We're gonna go in, we're gonna hack them, we're gonna get in their system, we're gonna wipe all the data, we're gonna destroy their infrastructure. And we think that private companies can do that faster and quicker than our Department of Justice and FBI can. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And quite frankly, our government has bigger things to worry about than this hacking bullshit.
Yep.
So, all right, guys, appreciate the insight. Today's stories for the show: fake networks on a plane. Be careful out there. Planes, trains, automobiles. Got to be careful. Those things can have these little devices that do these things called man-in-the-middle attacks, and they can pretty much log into your email if they know what they're doing with these kinds of attacks. So be forewarned. We are seeing, in our own company, a lot of people calling us up saying, hey, somebody got my email somehow. Well, this is probably how. Like, I'm not going to get into the technical aspects of how it goes down, but if one of these hackers sets up one of these types of networks, they can steal a cookie, and that cookie will let them log into Microsoft without your username and password. And it's not going to be a fun day for anyone who has to kick them out or it's not going to be a fun day of anybody who receives a spam message out of your inbox in that time frame. So we also got this hospital hack, guys, and we talked about the Facebook extortion, all new stuff that we haven't seen before, and then a government proposal to let companies hack back or hack somebody. It's going to be a limited operation set up by our federal government with certain rules and regulations that they're going to put in place to be released. And when they're released, we'll bring them to everybody and share our thoughts on what we think the rules mean for businesses and our ability to shut down or affect cybercrime in some way. Cybercrime's out in the open, and the response is moving there too, it seems. If you got any insight or tidbits, nuggets from the show, we just ask you to share the show. You can also head over to securitysquawk.com, check out the last 5 years of episodes there, as well as on YouTube. Subscribe wherever you can, Facebook, YouTube, on a podcasting platform. Give us a 5-star review. All that stuff helps other people find this content. So thanks to Randy, Andre. We'll see everyone next week. Stay safe. Stay secure.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.